Today I'll be sharing my personal expectations for the upcoming Ecuador versus Venezuela game, taking into consideration the history, the current context of both teams, and afterwards I'll share the starting lineup I'd like to see Ecuador play on Friday. Beginning with Venezuela, I actually think that they're not in the best shape possible. From what fans have been saying, it's a very questionable call-up that Batista made, where they feel that many players that should be on the list aren't. And defensively, they have a few players injured, a player or two suspended that should be key, and a couple of center midfielders that are running the risk of missing the next Venezuela game versus Peru if they see a yellow in Ecuador. They also haven't won in their last 8 games, and throughout the qualifiers, when they've had to play away, they've always conceded, which kind of speaks a little bit to the defending that maybe Batista has. Maybe it lacks tactically, or maybe the players just lack to remain focused throughout the whole game and not concede and keep a clean sheet. And they currently find themselves 1 point away from the playoff spot, who is currently held by Bolivia. Interesting enough, they still have to play Bolivia later this year in Venezuela. Their next game is versus Peru in Venezuela. Then they have Uruguay and Argentina away, which are both going to be very tough. And they close with Colombia at home, which at this point, maybe Colombia might already be qualified for the World Cup, so it might be an easy 3 points for them if Colombia does them the favor. But realistically speaking, they are not going to want to wait for other results, and they're going to want to try to get the most points possible these 2 games, which is key. I mean, if you're fighting that playoff spot with Bolivia, you're going to want at least 4 points, 1 here in Ecuador and the 3 at home versus Peru. I honestly see Venezuela trying to pose the same game that Paraguay did in Quito. If you remember, Paraguay basically played with a line of 5 in the back, were very compact, didn't always push out and attack, but they waited. They were very tactical with their attacks. They didn't just go all out crazy and trying to counterattack Ecuador crazy. They also try to take advantage of set pieces. So I expect Venezuela to kind of do the same thing, even though if you ask me, I don't think that Venezuela is as tactically disciplined as Paraguay, but that's the kind of game I see Venezuela trying to play against Ecuador. They are going to want a slow game. They're going to find occasions to maybe waste a little bit of time and try to keep it as clean as possible, just because, like I said earlier, they have a couple of center midfielders that are running the risk of missing the game versus Peru, which I would imagine is a higher priority to them. But all of this isn't to say that it's going to be an easy game. Venezuela again is in need of points, so they are going to come and try to get at least a tie, if not a win. They have a couple of good players. I mean, they have Rondon, which can, up against Pacho, I could see being very tough for him, but he is experienced and he can definitely do us some danger. So I really expect a very intense game, especially also if they manage to stay compact in the back. Ecuador's going to find it very hard to try to even get a shot in, and it might, as minutes go by, it might drive them crazy. So it's definitely not going to be an easy game. Looking at this now from the Ecuador perspective, we are currently in 3rd place with 19 points. Winning Venezuela will guarantee us a playoff spot for sure. And we can't say that we have easy games after this either. We play away versus Chile, home versus Brazil, away versus Peru, away versus Paraguay, and home versus Argentina. So this is just as key game for us as it is for Venezuela. There is no more easy points out on the road or at home from this point forward. But if I want to be optimistic, we are going to face one of the weakest Chiles that we've seen in years away, and we'll also be playing versus a Peru away that might already be eliminated by the time we get there. An important thing to note is that Caicedo, Torres, Baez, and Franco are also at risk of playing against Chile if they receive a yellow card. And speaking of buys, don't be surprised if you see him start. I really think that if Becachese found it necessary to call him up despite not having any competitive minutes in 2025, he would play him. Another important thing to note is that Hincapié is suspended for this game, which luckily I don't think is that big of a deal. We have defenders. In this case, Torres could easily take his spot and do a fantastic job. My biggest concern is with the attack. How is Becachese gonna structure this attack? How is he gonna go about creating opportunities for shots, short and long? During the Paraguay game, we really struggled with shooting, finding opportunities to shoot, to the point where I think in one of those plays, Hincapié took a random shot from outside the box, and it did not look good because it just showed that we weren't prepared. We were just trying to wing it and just trying to see what happened, and I really hope that Becachese took this moment to identify ways to affect the team that just likes to sit in the back. I think that these home games in Quito have been very clear that Becachese needs to work tactically when it comes to attacking, have clear build up with clear purpose of when to shoot from outside the box, when to not, and not just try to just play random crosses or random shots, but have a more clear mind of what we want to do as a team. This way, if we can find a good build-up where maybe if the defense sits back a lot, we can generate some good quality shots from out the box, and that will eventually force Venezuela to push out and not remain in the back because they're not going to want to receive those shots anymore. Improving the quality of shots that we get on the Venezuela goal will also increase opportunities for corner kicks, where our defenders that we know can do very well in corners can get a good opportunity to score. The biggest key for Ecuador will be to score early. If Venezuela comes to play the game that I expect, which is to be a defensive one, to park the bus, scoring early will make them change the script and have to go out and score and attack, and that's only going to benefit us because, I mean, Venezuela can't, like I said, they can't leave Quito with nothing. They need at least a point to try to qualify for the World Cup or at least get a playoff spot. And if they're forced to move up their lines and try to find something, then that will only tire them out in Quito. It will generate more spaces for us to try to attack some more, where, I mean, we could also take advantage of the fact that they are kind of forced to play a clean game, especially in the center mids where you have players that are running the risk of missing the Peru game. Having said all that, considering the context that Venezuela and Ecuador find themselves in, where it's a very important game for both teams, I'd like to see Ecuador be more organized in the attack and have more numbers up and play wider. With a 3-5-2 formation, I want to see Galindez starting goal, Ordóñez, Pacho, Torres as defenders, Franco, Caicedo, Mendez, Vite, Pervis in the midfield, and Plata and Ener in the attack. I think that this formation is very balanced in the attack and on defense. It gives us the opportunity to expand when we regain possession or are moving down the field. Defensively, we can have Mendez or one of the wingbacks like Pervis or Franco form a line of four if we're being under attack. Have very technical midfielders like Caicedo and Vite, create some passing opportunities, shooting opportunities, crossing opportunities for attackers, and have two attackers up top where we can either play them out wide and have them stretch the defensive line or find opportunities in the box so they can finish. The last point I'll make is that not only do we have the quality to beat Venezuela, but our players are coming at the best moment possible. We have Pacho, who recently qualified to the next round of champions, Ordóñez, who played champions, Torres, who scored, Pervis, that scored, Ener, that scored, Plata, who is finally settled at a club, Moy Caicedo, who is occasionally captain for Chelsea, Vite, that's assisting and scoring, Franco, who recently got crowned champion in Brazil, Mendez, who is seeing the most consistent club football that we've seen him have since Orlando City. So we have players in good form, and like I said, I expect it to be a very tough game, but I do predict a 2-0 win for Ecuador in Quito tomorrow. Hopefully we get to celebrate an Ecuador win tomorrow. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment what your thoughts are on my lineup.